She can kill with a smile, she can wound with her eyes, and she can ruin your faith with her casual lies. And she only reveals what she wants you to see. She hides like a child, but she's always a woman to me. She can lead you to love, she can take you or leave you. She can ask for the truth, but she'll never believe. And she'll take what you give her as long as it's free. Yeah, she steals like a thief, but she's always a woman to me. Oh, she takes care of herself. She can wait if she wants. She's ahead of her time.
Billy Joel has played, the new Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum 33 times.
Where?
33. You know Nassau in Long Island?
Nassau, not the Bahamas.
Not Nassau in the Bahamas, no, Nassau in Long Island,
yes.
Which you would have gone out to when you were heading to Kennedy Airport.
Yes, that's right.
You know he's from Long Island, right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
And it's
got a huge mansion there.
Yeah, Long Island is to Billy Joel what, Bruce Springsteen is to New Jersey kind of thing.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And they've redone, the Nassau Coliseum was a famous, rock venue.
Really?
All the bands used to go and play there.
Yeah.
But they've renovated it, right? And seemingly, he's been on some kind of amazing bender of concerts, and about 33 concerts he's done there now.
What, you mean consecutively?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Really? Yeah. Well, he's one of the great survivors, isn't he?
He is.
Because he's married to Christy Brinkley.
Yeah, didn't go well.
No, it didn't go well. And in fact, I think I've told you this before, I stumbled across the making
of that video.
Of Uptown Girl. Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't insert yourself into the video.
I should have done, shouldn't I, really? Got in there and helped them out. But,
I went to see him one night because, I can't remember who it was, but somebody staggered into Costello's one night who was associated with him in some way, shape or form.
Yes.
And the usual thing, it was got to about sort of 6:30, and this guy said, does anybody want to go and see Billy Joel?
Yeah.
And most of the guys were just
not
like,
then?
not really. And I said, I'd quite like to see Billy Joel. He was playing at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
So this guy produced 2 tickets out of his pocket and said, there you go.
Yes.
And off I went.
It
was tremendous.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Good.
About 1986.
Yeah. No. Oh, he was at his peak then. He was terrific.
And it was during a time when the World Series was on.
Yes.
And the Mets were playing. Right. And the Mets, of course, were his team. He was from Long Island. So in between every song, he was updating the crowd on what the Mets were doing.
Yeah, I see.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, keep you in touch.
Yeah.
Now, I've got some great news for people who manufacture bar snacks.
What?
Bar snacks,
This is not another shameless plug for your porky scratchers.
Listen, I didn't mention them.
You're going to get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I didn't mention them. You did.
Okay.
I mean, just so happens that I have to have an association with the bar snacks company who produce the Mike Porky Parry porky scratchers.
How's that all going, by the way?
It's going very well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, listen.
Somebody asked me the other day whether you were funding the advertising that was going into the Two Mikes website.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Given that it's a sort of, another one of your solo organised deals.
What is?
The porky scratchings.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So whether we're giving you free advertising space on the Two Mikes website, which is jointly owned by us.
No, don't worry about that.
As opposed to the porky scratching, which is not jointly owned by us.
No, don't worry. No such.
I'm not worried about it.
No such,
I just want to make sure that everything is on the level.
Infidelic sort of practices taking place.
Because you can't be trusted when it comes to these.
What I've managed to do is, I've managed to find new scientific evidence which proves that people who manufacture bar snacks, including sort of porky scratchings,
and other bar snacks which are available.
Well, if people don't want porky scratchings, I suppose they are, But it is not a cynical plan to stock bars with things with salt in them so that you drink more, right?
Yeah, because you're going to tell me that people that eat salty things actually don't get any more thirsty, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Absolute rubbish.
Absolutely. It's
absolute
in
rubbish.
one of my scientific journals.
Has this been research as performed by people who make porky scratching?
No. This has been done completely independently.
By whom?
By independent bodies. It says the idea that eating too much salt makes you thirsty may be nothing more than an old wives' tale.
Maybe.
Scientists have concluded, okay?
Maybe nothing more.
In a study carried out during a simulated mission to Mars, researchers found that astronauts who ate more salt retained more water and were not as thirsty and were hungrier.
Oh, so if you're up in space,
yes.
you don't get any more thirsty.
Exactly.
But what about if you're on land?
Well,
you're on the Earth.
It all relates
well,
to...
no, it doesn't. I mean, the circumstances up in space are entirely different.
No.
There's no gravity for a start.
No, you can relate all this to... You see, people have said for years, it's a cynical exercise to put crisps and peanuts and porky scratchings into bars because people eat them, there's salt on them, and then they want to drink more. That's a nonsense.
Rubbish.
This was published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, right? And
the Journal of Clinical Investigation?
Yes, Journal of Clinical Investigation,
well,
right?
That must be all right then.
And what I'm telling you is that the new results showed... without having to get down to detail, salt stays in the human urine, while water moved back into the kidney.
Show this, you know.
I know, and the body, and thirst is not increased with increase. What are you laughing at? And thirst.
I don't know what your read is.
Thirst is not increased with
increase.
Like
Irene?
Excuse
Come on,
me.
Irene.
No.
Come on, you read by Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Would you let me finish, please? Thirst is not increased with increases of salt consumed into the body.
Rubbish.
Okay?
Absolute rubbish.
Eating more salt led to a higher salt content and found a correlation between amounts of salt and overall quantity of water, i.e. urine, in the body, okay?
What?
But the increase was
not all water in the body is urine, is it?
Well, a lot of it is.
No, it isn't. Well, maybe in your body.
But the increase was not due to more drinking. In fact, a salty diet caused the subjects to drink less, triggering a mechanism to conserve water in the kidneys.
What?
Now,
but the point is, if you eat a lot of salt, right, regardless of whether that salt comes via snacks, whether you just put a lot of salt on your food, it tends to make you more thirsty.
No, it doesn't. No, definitely not. No, this is proof.
It's not proof.
I will read the workings and the writings.
Is it sponsored by KP, this?
Of the leader of this investigation.
Leader. What's his name?
Professor Friedrich C. Luft, who is the... What's your problem?
Professor Luft?
Yeah, it is Luft. Yeah, no, it is Professor C. Luft,
right.
Who is the managing director of Charité University Hospital in Berlin. And he said it's not...
Luft?
Yeah. He said this is... Hang on. He said this is all an assumption. It's an assumption which has now been disproved. He said...
Cobblers.
No, hang on. This man's an expert. He says it turns out to be a very important osmolyte. It's talking about the salt.
That's like osmosis, isn't it? You know what that is?
Yes, of course I know what it is.
What's osmosis?
It's moving of water through a substance by traction.
Isn't osmosis what plants do?
Yeah, that's right. They turn things green and all that kind of stuff.
No, they don't turn things green.
No, they don't. That's called...
Isn't it the absorption of...
It's absorption of
water.
Moisture, that's right, yeah. So anyway, it turns out to be a very important osmolyte.
Right.
A compound that binds to water.
Like them.
Yeah.
The osmolytes.
The Israelites. That was Desmond Decker.
It was. I'm amazed you knew that.
Yeah. Instead, it turns out to be a very important osmolyte.
Osmolyte.
A compound that binds to water and helps to transport it. The function is actually to keep water in the body. Nature has apparently...
Is there much more of this? Why are you going on about this for so long?
Because I'm proving things that are fallacies. Nature has apparently found a way to conserve water...
According to Professor Luft.
...that would otherwise be carried through the body. So, I mean...
Was he the Luftwaffe?
No, you... What an idiot you are, honestly. I produce a lot of these scientific surveys, and you just choose to mock and deride that which you don't understand.
The University of Berlin.
What I'm able to tell you is
that
anybody who wants a packet of pork scratchings, pork scratchings...
This message brought to you by...
No.
You can't do this, It's undue prominence.
I'm using it merely as an example. All right, we'll just call them pork scratchings, okay?
Well, or any bar snack.
So any pork scratchings, which have got salt in them, you eat them, but then you don't necessarily then go and drink a lot more to,
Well, I mean, in your case, you couldn't drink any more than you already do.
Yeah, you don't...
Doesn't matter how much pork scratchings you eat.
You don't drink a lot more just to supplement, the salt in your body or anything like that. It has no effect. In fact... You drink less.
Do you put
good
salt...
Good for people with drink problems.
Do you put... Do you put salt on your food? Extra salt?
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
when you
salt.
have like fish and chips, do you put salt
Oh,
on?
very much so. I like salt.
Because fish and chips, actually, funnily enough, is one of the few things I actually put salt on.
Yeah, I do. I
mean, I cook with a bit of salt, but not much. But I very rarely put salt on my food.
Oh, I like salt, and I don't believe...
Don't you think that's what's the cause of you drinking so much?
No, not at all.
What is the cause of that, then?
Well, I don't drink so much anyway, so that's an idiotic statement.
Well, it's like that question, when did you stop beating your wife?
Yes, it is. I like salt on things like beef.
Beef?
Yes, and, meat. Well,
what I'm saying is you put salt on everything, right?
I do, yes. Yeah. And I put black pepper on a lot of things as well, because I find they really improve the flavour.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, for instance...
Well, you can, of course, cook things with different flavours. You know what I made today?
Yes, I saw the picture of it. Chicken korma.
I made a chicken biryani. Actually, it was a lamb biryani, sorry.
Lamb biryani, yeah.
Because I had the leftover slow-cooked lamb.
Oh, yes,
which
from
was roasted.
Easter.
Which was tremendous, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I made a really, really nice sort of curried biryani with it. It was
curried biryani, yeah, very good.
Absolutely terrific.
Okay, well,
and you don't need to put a lot of salt in something like that because it's got lots of other flavours.
Yes, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the whole idea when you're getting treated for heart troubles is to eat no salt whatsoever.
Is that right?
And then you supplement your diet by using things like basil.
Well, what do those kind of doctors say? I bet they say if you eat too much salt, then you're drinking too much water and liquid, and it can't be good for you.
No, the amount of salt that the body can consume is another one of those great scientific debates, like is egg and bacon good for you or not? 1 minute it is, and the next minute it's not.
I would say it's okay for you once in a while. I mean, I don't think you have egg and bacon every single day.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, I don't have any eggs anyway, so I'm never going to die of egg, poisoning. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you also wouldn't have a bacon sandwich every day, would you?
Well, I don't put any salt on bacon sandwiches because.
Well, no, that's very salty.
Yes,
it's already cured.
But I do like salt on sausages.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
See, I don't think that's good for you.
Yeah, I think that's good for you.
All right. Well, we'll come back. Anyway, you those horrible.
I like salt on pizza, actually.
Ugh.
Yeah, I do.
Pineapple.
Yes.
Pineapple and salt pizza.
Yes, I do.
God, you are the limit.
Yeah,
unbelievable. We are the two mics. Lord Matthew says this. Is Porky running for the vacancy of Prime Minister? I doubt it. Porky couldn't even run for the bus. I'm not sure that technically there is a vacancy for the Prime Minister's job yet, is there?
No,
because the actual race has not kicked off, has it?
No, absolutely
because I think before anything happens, there's some local elections on May the 4th. Yeah. And basically, they can only start the countdown to the general election after that.
I don't think they can. I think in the Commons today, the motion will be moved to call a general election on June the 8th, and then you're in play.
Yeah.
You can go for it right from the start.
Well,
and in fact, I think you'll find they're duty bound to, because the minimum period really for an election, if it's called out of the blue, is 3 weeks, right?
5 weeks of campaigning would begin on Monday, May the 8th, according to what I'm looking at here. It says local elections are held in England, Wales and Scotland, plus regional mayoral votes on Thursday, May the 4th. So I don't think they can actually physically start the campaign before that.
Behind the scenes is what I mean. Everybody will be going at it hell for leather, because, funny enough, there are some...
Well, they started yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, they did,
I mean, you couldn't move yesterday for people crawling out of the woodwork from various think tanks, MPs, MPs, agents.
Once again, Westminster Green was taken over by people who've never had a job, talking complete hot air and nonsense about going on. When I used to do the elections when I was a new Supremo on Fleet Street,
Supremo.
Yeah, I always tried to sort of finish it off by going to the Waldorf and buying. The Waldorf, I should say.
The Waldorf. Waldorf salad.
Give me a Waldorf salad.
Yeah.
And saying to the political team, we had about 6 or 7 of them, including old John, what's his name, from Sky, who's...
John Craig.
John Craig, who's now on Sky. He's the deputy political editor on Sky.
Well,
he was our deputy political editor to a guy called Will Stewart at The Express. Will is now a terrifically successful correspondent east-west. He works in Moscow and the sort of Eastern Bloc, but he also works back here in London and bridges the two. And I would take them to the Waldorf for champagne breakfast.
Yes.
And in those days, it was quite rare to find somebody where you could order champagne at breakfast time.
In the Old Witch?
In the Old Witch, yeah absolutely.
Which is a Hilton now, by the way.
Is it a Hilton?
It is a Hilton now.
Is it a Hilton? Yeah, OK. Well,
it's not quite as grand as it once was.
Well, it had the Palm Bar where all those tea dances used to take place. Was it called the Palm?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was the Palm Court. Palm Court Bar.
Palm Court, yes.
And it was in the Palm Court. They used to lay out the breakfast, and we got in there.
I always preferred the River Room at the Savoy, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I quite like that as well, but, you know...
Couldn't afford that, probably.
Well, you could afford it, but, I mean, the Waldorf, literally a walk away, wasn't it? You're the end of Fleet Street,
so is the Savoy.
Sorry?
So is the Savoy.
Savoy's a bit more round the old.
Savoy is about 3 minutes from the Waldorf.
Yeah, I suppose it is in the end. But there were a lot of people in the Savoy on that morning, and the Waldorf was just easy to get into.
I see.
So that's why we did it there.
Yes.
Now, I want to tell you something here, right?
I've got some tweets here for you. Giff says this.
Yeah.
Methinks Porky doth protest far too much when commenting on dubious landlord sexual practices.
Oh, I'm not getting involved in that.
For rent.
Absolutely disgraceful. What I want to celebrate is that on this day, right, a man who will go down as legendary figure. What are you laughing at?
Because I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, we
already missed out on Einstein yesterday.
No, it's a guy called Arthur Conway.
Arthur Conway.
Right.
Don't think I know him.
Yeah. And on this day in 1950, right, this 37-year-old layabout, right, was the first man in Britain to be publicly labelled work shy.
Work shy?
Yeah, yeah.
In what year was this?
This is in 1950.
Okay.
It was a case brought by the National Assistance Board.
Right.
And to my absolute extreme joy, he was jailed for 3 months for failing to maintain himself, his wife and his 3 children.
Right.
Now, that's because he turned down a series of job vacancies which were offered to him by putting up ridiculous excuses as to why he couldn't do them.
And was this in the early days of the benefit system?
Well, it's 1950, so it was just 5 years after the end of the Second World War when the welfare state barely existed. But if it did, you had to be, terribly hard up.
Yeah.
But you were,
But that's why I'm surprised that they would have been sophisticated enough to start offering people jobs, because I didn't think that they might have had the wherewithal at that point.
Well, believe it or not, the economy mushroomed after the Second World War.
I know
because once the troops came home,
it was the height of you've never had it so good, wasn't it?
That's right. Well, that was
Harold Macmillan.
That was in the mid-50s, but you're absolutely right. It was on the path there. So we had to rebuild a country.
Yeah.
So there was public money about,
Yeah.
So this guy turned down 3 jobs. So they jailed him. Now, if only we would do that today.
No.
If only we would do that today.
Rubbish.
The amount of layabouts we have in this country now
it costs more money to
enormous.
put somebody in jail than it does to put them on benefits.
We'll have layabout camps then and put them in there.
Layabout camps?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, where they can, they can
You've
do
obviously
something
lost
useful.
the plot.
No, I haven't lost the plot.
You go from, shamelessly hawking your latest commercial venture to blaming people for being too incapable of working.
Yeah,
so you
layabouts.
should lock them up in a camp.
There's too many layabouts.
You've gone mad.
And by the way,
shocking attitude.
Most layabouts don't want to be layabouts. Most layabouts were made layabouts by Gordon Brown.
No, that's not true.
Who decided, let's have a huge welfare state.
That's not true.
The body politic of the labour movement.
No, that's not true.
And
what Gordon Brown tried to do, albeit that he didn't do it very successfully, was to try and help people get back into work.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't.
But he didn't really. I mean, the trouble is you can't give people money for nothing then expect them to go back to work.
No, exactly. He was very happy for, Gordon Brown allowed the floodgates open, along with Tony Blair, to allow a huge pool of cheap labour to flood into this country.
That's true,
which helped out all his mates.
They later admitted.
Yes, exactly. Which helped all his mates who needed cleaners and gardeners.
Well, they all got the vote in Scotland as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they flooded in. They took all the jobs that were the lowest paid jobs, which meant that Gordon Brown had to make sure that, so as this plan didn't get thwarted, that the British people who should have been doing those jobs, had we not had millions of people coming from abroad, had to be looked after in a position where they didn't have to work.
Well, it's a bit worse than that, actually, because what they did was they created a system whereby it wasn't economical for a lot of people to get a job.
That's
it was
exactly
better
what
for
I mean.
them to stay on the dole.
And that is worse than putting people in jail, because that basically strips a man of his dignity, strips a woman of the ability
welfare trap, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. To be independent in this society of ours.
Yeah.
And
but
therefore,
I think the trouble is, though, you can't sit there and pontificate as a very well-off person because people will take that very badly. and they'll say, "What do you know
I
about?"
want people to be able to work.
Yeah, but it's nothing to do with you. You know what you
It's
know about.
everything to do with me because I'm a taxpayer.
What you know about the difficulties of being, finding work hard to find in different parts of the country is absolutely nothing.
No,
you know nothing about it.
Employment's at record
levels. You've never been
levels.
unemployed in your life, have you?
Yes, I have. Of course, I have.
You?
When I've been between jobs,
You've claimed
resting and all that
unemployment
kind of
benefit,
stuff.
have you?
No, of course I haven't. No.
Why not?
would I claim that?
Well, because you're entitled to claim it.
Well, I never have. But no, what I'm going to say is that
that shows you that you've never needed it.
Working jobs in this country are at record numbers, right? There are jobs everywhere. You look down any high street in this country,
that's not true.
You will see things like
but the point is that
barman wanted, chefs
but
wanted,
the point is
receptionists wanted.
But there's an awful lot of those jobs which are uneconomical for people who are on benefits.
Well, that's why you've got to restructure the welfare state, because it's unkind and unfair to say to people you can survive without working. Working is the essence of most people's lives.
That may well be true, and as a theory,
and
it's a very
everybody
good
should
theory.
be allowed to take a job.
But by the same token, people have children that they can't leave behind at home while they go off to work, so they get help for having the kids. I mean, the next conversation you're going to tell me is people should be stopped from having children unless they can afford to bring them up.
That's utter rubbish.
Well,
of course I wouldn't say that.
Well, that's the logical conclusion of your argument.
There is a lack of dignity in somebody who has to live off other people's handouts, even if it's the state. Most people would like to work. And therefore, we have to provide jobs for those people to be able to work. And if they were born and brought up in this country, they should be entitled to think there'll be a job here for me within the society in which
what if they were born and brought up
place.
in a European Union country, which is part of what we are currently with?
Well, that's exactly what's happened. Millions of people from there have come here to work in this country, and good luck to them.
Yeah.
I have not a problem with that because they're hard-working and they've come to seek a better life, and that's fine.
Yeah, but that's a gross generalisation.
But we can't then say, but there's another 1.5 million or 2 million who are, people who were born and brought up in this country who can't work because the working jobs that they wanted have been taken by others. You've got to get that right.
Well,
you've got
to try and get it right, but people have not got it right for decades.
Well,
and in fact, no politician has managed to get it right, and I suspect they will not get it right in the next Parliament either.
I'm telling you, we need a bit more growth in the economy. You expand the number of jobs, you then make sure everybody's got a job, because I think it's terribly
it's
unkind
not that simple, is it?
to condemn somebody to unemployment on a long-term basis.
I see.
It's
I think
soul-destroying.
Coming across as very heartless, I'm
No,
afraid.
I'm not coming across as heartless. I'm coming across as a great caring individual.
No, but everyone knows
I want
you're not.
people to be happy.
Everyone knows you're not caring
and
at all.
have
The only person
fulfilling
you
lives.
care about is yourself.
No, that's not true. I
Adam
care about
says
others.
this. Can you wish my fiancée Nicola Poxon a happy 40th birthday on Wednesday the 19th, please? It's from Adam. He says, P.S. she's a big fan of Porky.
That's Nicola.
Nicola Poxon.
Oh, OK. Nicola Poxon, if you are listening, my dear, I want to say to you, what is it, of anniversary?
40th birthday.
Oh, 40th birthday. It's your 40th birthday. I tell you what, life starts at 40. And 40 is also a very glamorous age.
How do you remember? How can you remember that?
So I want to wish you a terrifically happy birthday and a long and fulfilling life to come.
Crazy, awesome. Crazy, awesome. Never stop and they never die. They just keep on pumping how they multiply. Crazy horses, will they never halt? If they keep on moving, then it's all a fall. Crazy, awesome.
I've got a tweet here from Andy who says, is this the trash headline MG commissioned when he commandeered the Mirror editor's office? And he says it looks my MG sold out, I think is what he means, but it's that picture there of Tony Blair holding the Mirror, and it says, I will win it for Mirror readers. Unfortunately, Andy, as much as your poison is a very good idea, I was actually working for the Express when they got elected. So that wasn't the paper that I was involved with. No, it was only later on that I was working for them.
There is a great opportunity for the political barons of my home city of Chester.
The political barons?
Yes.
Do
you know what?
Did I not see, was it not the local MP from Chester who put the stuff out that I retweeted about the mock crucifixion that went on up there?
I think it was.
Easter weekend.
Yeah, that's
What's his name? The local MP?
Chris Matheson.
That's him, yeah.
Is the, now, he's Labour, right? But he holds the narrowest majority of just 93 votes of any Labour seat in this country. Against any other party. Now, my thinking is, as I have a lot of influence in that part of the world, don't you think it'd be wise for all political parties concerned to get
Chester.
to get on the blow to me, pretty damn quick.
To see whether you're going to endorse anything.
Well, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
I mean,
couldn't my endorsement of a candidate there be vital?
No.
Hey?
I don't think it can be.
I think
you may be barking up the wrong tree. More disturbingly, I was watching your Twitter feed earlier on today.
Oh, yes.
When you put out a tweet which suggested that many people were asking you to run for office.
Well...
And I don't know quite where that came from, because I haven't seen more than about one person who I'm pretty sure is clinically insane asking you to run for any kind of democratic
I think you'll find.
post.
I think you'll find it's all part of the mantra which has built up over the years we've worked together, which goes like... Vote Porky, vote often.
Yes.
And I think people
you can't vote more than once in most general elections.
Well, you know where that comes from? It comes from the days of the rotten boroughs.
No, it comes from the days of winners and losers when you used to try and gerrymander the result.
Ah, yes, but I nicked it from the sort of 19th century when the rotten boroughs were so rotten that actually you could just move a load of people who worked for you on the land, just move them around a few constituencies and get them all to vote for you all the time.
Right.
And if they
it's your kind of election, that,
it is, yeah. You have to forge a few betting slips, not betting slips, voting slips. Right. Betting slips would be a good thing, wouldn't they? Then you could...
have you cashed in your betting slip for the Grand National yet?
Yes, I did, actually.
Did you pick up the money?
I did indeed.
And have you sent it on to the horse sanctuary?
Yes, I have.
I don't believe you.
Yes, I have.
Where's the evidence?
I don't have to produce evidence to you of my good
you
work.
do. Not for me. I trust you implicitly.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there are people out there who decided that they should ask for evidence whenever you say that you're donating money.
Well,
because they're not really of the mind to believe you.
It's not something I like to make a lot of.
Is that right?
No, I prefer to do it quietly.
How about this from Nick? He says, I can't wait for that election night special fronted by Mike Parry and Richard Dimbleby via Derek Acora.
Yes, that's right. It will be via Derek Acora. You're absolutely right. All I'm saying is that it was David Dimbleby's father, Richard Dimbleby, who put down the blueprint for those election nights. And anybody who knows anything about the history of political broadcasting, as I do, being a student of it...
They had the swingometer in Richard Dimbleby's day, did they?
Yes, they did.
Sure.
Yes, they did, definitely.
Right.
And that was taken on by Peter Snow, who then, leapt around all over the place. I think he's Jon Snow's uncle, isn't he, or
He's
something?
his brother, isn't he?
No, it's definitely not his brother. He's uncle. He's his uncle.
Are you sure he's not his brother?
I'm certain he's not his brother, honestly. There's a big age difference between them. And
Jon Snow's pretty old, you know.
Jon Snow is getting old now. He's getting up towards 60, but Peter Snow's in his 80s, I think, or something like that. So, so I can assure you that it was Peter Snow, the uncle, who started the swingometer. But all those things are sort of trial and error type thing. Some of them work and some of them don't.
Yeah, but they now got your mate Jeremy Vine jumping about, haven't they, on a map?
Yeah, they have.
Which gets more and more complicated with every broadcast that they do.
I totally agree. They have. Yeah.
Has he never asked you for your input on something like that?
Oh, I've been asked many times to contribute.
By Jeremy Vine?
Well, yes.
To contribute on the election night on the BBC?
Oh, no.
That's what I'm asking you.
No, on all sorts of topical issues in the world of broadcasting.
Yeah, we know all that.
Yes,
we know he's had you on as an expert on
Well, I've had
obesity.
to turn a lot down because I'm too busy, you see.
Is that right?
Yes. But it's always very kind of them to think of me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem at all. Now then, I tell you what I want to talk to you about. Apart from all that, I want to talk to you about Harry Redknapp, because I'm so delighted that Harry Redknapp, who is a personal friend of ours, we can tell that without fear or favour.
I mean, you may say that he's a personal friend of yours. I would say that I know him very, very scantily. I wouldn't call him a friend.
But hang on, we recently went to an exhibition with him and helped promote things.
Yes,
and all that kind of stuff.
I had a very nice chat with him.
And he was
he's a lovely guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would hesitate to call him a friend because I don't know him that well.
Oh, okay.
I know that you like to call people friends if they've got something to kind of be proud of.
Well, not necessarily. But anyway, the point is, he's back in football. I think that's terrific. And the best thing Birmingham can do to make up for the ridiculous appointment of Gianfranco Zola is just say to Harry now, Harry, if you keep us up, which he will, I'm certain he will.
Hasn't he said that they only need to basically make another 3 points?
Well, they've got 3 games, and I didn't hear him say we only need 3 points.
I think he said they only need 3 points.
Well, okay, well, if that's...
Because they're 3 points. They're 3 points ahead of the relegation
zone
at the moment.
Exactly. I don't think they're in danger of going down, and I think he will doubly ensure they don't.
Well, if they don't get any points, they could.
Yes, they could, yes, but I'm sure with Harry in charge now that won't be the case.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is they should now immediately say, and look, will you do next season at least, because... He's 70 now, Harry, but he still seems to have an awful lot of energy.
Yes.
To be able to get to the players. And I can't think of anybody better to stabilise a club that, needs reminding that it can be a big club.
And what they've said to him is that if it all goes well and he keeps them up, then they may well have another conversation at the end of the season. So
Indeed.
You may find himself as the Birmingham manager again next season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he should. He should be the Birmingham manager. Yeah,
I mean, he's got to travel up every day from the wrong side of the M25, hasn't he?
Well, it depends if he wants to or not. I mean, he used to travel up to London to Spurs.
Yeah, but he's now got to go round the M25 and up to Birmingham.
Well, I don't think he'd do that daily, would he? Wouldn't he do what a lot of people do and have a temporary accommodation near his place of work?
But you see, that's difficult, isn't it? Because which days do you not go? Which days do you not spend in Birmingham?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as complicated a fixture schedule as like a Premier League club playing in Europe, but I know what you mean, yeah. Is there ever a good day not to go?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it would always be tricky. How about this from Julie? It says, Paul Mason of The Guardian says Labour will win. Like Porky saying Everton and Liverpool will fill two of the top four spots. Hashtag deluded. Well, Paul Mason's also the guy who's on Channel 4 News as their economics editor. And he is practically a sort of communist. He's a great Corbynite.
Oh, is he?
And
right.
believes, of course, that because of the only people he talks to are indeed people that are like him.
Yeah, that's right,
So everybody's going to vote for Corbyn.
Yeah.
Which even people in the Labour Party don't think is going to happen.
No, they don't. You're absolutely right. What was quite interesting was, we had the debate recently about the fact that the Guardian now will have to move back to the north of England because they're so financially strapped. To Manchester. And I did read a piece somewhere over the weekend saying that, people like Polly Toynbee, who regards herself as the queen bee of sort of...
Champagne socialism.
Of champagne socialism and the chattering classes, mostly based in Islington in North London.
And, of course, Tuscany.
And Tuscany.
Where she's also got a house.
OK. Has she? I didn't know that, but OK, that's fine.
Yeah, she spends quite a lot of time in Italy.
That's great, I mean, she may have a problem moving to sort of Didsbury or Sale or Altrincham or somewhere like that, you know. Because A, she wouldn't be able to find it, and B, when she got there, she wouldn't be able to understand anything that anybody was saying because of the different regional accents, So I can't see that happening, and maybe in the shakedown after this election, it could be a brave new world for an awful lot of people.
You think?
Yeah.
In what sense?
Well, in the sense that I think some people's careers are going to be wiped out because if you are attached... I mean, a lot of... you've got to remember, a lot of Tory politicians' careers were wiped out after the second Blair victory because they knew that a third was coming and they just quit and gave it up. Lots of them did. And I think that will happen to a lot of Labour people. If they see a decade now of dominance by... another party, in this case being the Conservatives, of course they'll cop out. Who wants to do 10 years in opposition? Opposition's miserable in the political world.
Well, you say that,
world.
but
it is miserable.
Well, unfortunately,
people hate it.
Yeah, well, they don't hate it as much as they used to because it's a much more lucrative business now than it used to be. And so an awful lot of people get into politics now, take the view that actually I can make quite a lot of money, I can make a great deal of contacts, I can find myself getting directorships at all kinds of levels, and basically I can be below the parapet, if you like, without actually having to worry too much and make a decent living for about 10 years without having to worry about it.
Well, I agree with that to an extent, but that usually is when you've been a minister and you go into opposition because the political tide has changed. So, if you've been a Labour minister and then you're thrown into opposition, you retain your seat, as you quite rightly say, but you get loads and loads of bonds for going and doing dinners and after dinners and directorships and all that. I don't think anybody who's a member of the Labour front bench who has not been a minister in this country will have anything like the same pulling power. And therefore, I think they'll just say, I'm going back to the city or something like that, Well,
maybe, but a lot of them, don't forget, are not actually people who would be qualified to do anything like that.
Oh, a lot of them never had a proper job anyway.
That's what I mean.
So they can't find anywhere to go.
That's why people got fed up with them, because we now have the birth of the kind of politician class.
Oh, yeah, they have
gone
to.
Straight from university, straight into a job in the Houses of Parliament as a researcher, and then suddenly they're an MP.
Or they've worked in some other area of public service, like, some blinking Quango or something like that, and then come into politics. Never worked in a business where wealth has to be created. They've only worked in businesses where they have taken all the wealth from within that organisation and put it in their pocket.
Page and on the two mics as well.
Sure.
And I'm about to put it on Twitter. So if you're wondering how you can watch it live, that is how you can do it. If you go to the two mics Twitter, that's how you can.
Sure, it's on the two mics page.
It is on the two mics page. I've just put it there, but it was initially launched on the Mike Graham page.
Right. Okay.
Where you can find it as well.
Okay.
So it's in both places.
Okay, this is good news.
Can you find things on Facebook?
Yeah, I can. No, not on Facebook. I'm talking about. Is it on the Mike Graham Twitter?
It's on the two mics Twitter in about 2 seconds from now.
Right, that's great. That's all I need to know.
Okay, now let me read you a starting question while I just get this link out.
That's good. That's good.
I'm going to be saying,
okay, let's get going.
Yeah, this is from Verminator. He says, it's my 60th this year. Do I do a racing weekend, a golf weekend, or a European city weekend with the lads? Either way, it is mass bladderation.
Listen, enjoy your mass bladderation. I, myself, am not one who goes out in groups like that. Certainly not to a European city, because you've got to travel with the guys for 3 or 4 hours, and then you've got to stay with them for 3 or 4 days, and then you come back for 3 or 4 hours. So I'd find that quite oppressive. As for the golf weekend, if you're a golfer, that sounds great. What was the third one?
The third one was racing.
Racing, and a day out of the races is marvellous, absolutely marvellous. I'd go for the racing one, because that gives you a short, sharp burst of adrenaline and a bit of fun. But I think the weekend away in Europe, mate, that you'll fall out with people.
OK, Stephen says this. As someone who's trying to start a fitness regime, I was wondering what I need to do to have a physique like Porky.
Well, what you've got to do is you've got to start walking, because people, what they do is, usually in the sort of early weeks of the new year, they join a very expensive gym, and then they go to the gym about twice and buy a load of expensive gear and then, run on a treadmill for about half an hour over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then they just give it up. Walking is the best thing you can do. It doesn't jar your joints. It's a nice, gentle entry into developing physical fitness, but it's very, very good for you as well mentally, because you've got time to think, and it's very good for your skin, because when you're outside walking, you get vitamin D from sunshine. I would take that up.
OK, Mark says this. Why do people paint their kitchen walls yellow?
Well, I've no idea. My kitchen walls aren't yellow. My kitchen walls are white.
Are they?
I don't know why people paint it yellow. If I was going to paint it any other colour, it would be a sort of pale blue, because the rest of my house is blue. So I cannot answer the significance of yellow, which I find is a nice colour contrasted with blue, but rather insipid on its own.
David says this. Dear Porky, what are the chances of Spurs winning the FA Cup and the league? Please don't jinx us.
Well, they've got a very good chance of winning the FA Cup. They've only got to get through a semi-final, haven't they, to get to the final?
Well, they've got to get past Chelsea.
Yeah, well, I agree, but I mean, it's one game, that's what I'm saying. So if they can raise their game in that game, and they're easily as good as Chelsea at the moment, I think, then they've got an opportunity there. And that's for winning the league. They can still win it. They can still win the Premier League. You get the kind of feeling that Conte, the manager of Chelsea, maybe Chelsea, have got the collywobbles about them, and Spurs definitely haven't.
Oh, right, OK. How about this one from Becky, who says, if Porky is smarter than the average bear, what was Einstein smarter than?
Well, Einstein was a really bright guy, but, I mean, his intelligence and his genius was channeled into a very, very narrow focus, that focus being on inventing the atomic bomb, really. Well, I mean, the theory of relativity, which isn't largely applicable to... Well, it's not applicable to anybody in the world. It just produces a weapon of mass destruction. I would agree that atomic power is of great benefit to the world, but unfortunately that's a political football. So, you have to look at the overall contribution to the welfare of man.
Now, in terms of gerrymandering, here's one from Glenn. He says, Dear Porky, as a Brexiteer who is extremely suspicious of the establishment, I knew that one way or the other, they would find a way to get a second referendum on the EU question. Would you agree that this election has nothing to do with domestic policy and is in fact the gerrymandering of the people's voice, which spoke so loudly on June 23rd last year?
No, I wouldn't at all. What this is this general election is a consequence of the Brexit vote, because David Cameron, the Prime Minister, foolishly, and he has been a foolish politician, he nailed his colours to the mast of one side or the other, whereas he should have been chairman in the middle. He should have said, right, these guys want to stay in, these guys want to stay out, I'm the Prime Minister, I'll conduct the contest. He didn't. He decided to weigh in massively and heavily with the Remainers and put himself in the European camp. He got beaten, he's out, and the new Prime Minister who came in is now seeking her own majority. Perfectly legitimate.
Here's one from Kelly. Would you consider going on Question Time if asked?
Not really, to be honest, because I think the audiences are loaded in Question Time, very loaded towards the left spectrum of
people have said that
of politics.
Yeah.
I also think that the people they bring onto the panel of Question Time it's an incredibly manufactured panel. It's nothing like, this guy basically thinks this way, this guy basically thinks the other. They're fanatics, and trouble with fanatics is they spend all the time studying their facts and figures, and it's hard to get your point across to them.
Right, Marcus sent this in because Marcus has asked your advice in the past.
Yeah.
He says, I took your advice, but the girl became pregnant. Should I continue to break up a family or walk away? I think the previous question was whether he should be with this woman who has a family already.
Right.
She's apparently now become pregnant.
Well, I'm sorry, mate, this sounds like a total mess to me. When you're in domestic situations like that, you've got to draw the lines very carefully. once you start parenting more than one family, which appears to be what you have done, I'm afraid I can't advise you there, because I think that is a terrible mess, not just because it's going to cause you problems, but you wreck other people's lives, and that shouldn't be done.
OK, here's one from Richard. He says, I'm planning my mother's 70th birthday celebrations coming up blank. Any ideas?
Yeah, because if your mother's 70, the only thing she'll want with her on her 70th birthday, the day of, is her family around her. So you either find a very nice restaurant somewhere with an upstairs room, somewhere in the country if you live in the country, or somewhere in town if you live in a town, or if you've got a nice enough family house, and, every family house is nice if it's one family's home, I should get that, decorated and done up. When I say decorated, I mean, put a bit of bunting up and all that, and make it a special day for your mum at home with her family, with all her family there.
Maxwell says this.
Planning.
Dear Porky, I'm running a successful small business at the moment and feel I'm ready to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
But with little experience in business, having only run this one, I'm slightly nervous about taking the risk. I'm only 24 and started this myself 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I keep telling myself to just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Do you advise I just give it my all and make it happen, as I know deep down this could definitely grow exponentially and become a rather large and successful business?
Well, I very much admire your industry and your initiative in running your own business at 24. That's great. But what I would say is if you've clearly got doubts about expanding, now there's two ways you're looking at that. Either you're being timid, or you could be rushing into something that's foolish. Please do examine all the options and use common sense. I've been involved in businesses where people have told me it's going to be a success, but when you sit down and just don't listen to anybody else and look at the figures, do the figures add up? Will they add up? Can you make it work? That's the only thing that you can go forward on. That's the evidence that you have to use to decide yes or no. You're only 24, you've got plenty of time, you don't need to rush into anything.
Lyle says this, if you could be one James Bond, who would you be and why? And which Bond are you most similar to?
Well, I liked Roger Moore's James Bond because I thought he both brought, really stylish presence to the role with a modicum of humour. He didn't overdo it, and I liked it. So I also liked him because he's the last James Bond, really. And I love the fact that he was Commander Bond and that he was often getting on and off Royal Navy submarines and that sort of thing. And that, to me, is, that's very representative of our country. So my answer is Roger Moore.
Ross says, Dear Porky, I want to take my wife away on her first holiday abroad. Where should I take her? Says Ross from Exeter.
Well, that's a very wide-ranging question, that, Ross, because I don't know what the likes of your wife are. She might love the Mediterranean, or she might love the Loire Valley in France, or she might love, going to Florida for a holiday. It's, what everything Florida brings, or Disneyland. I don't know. All I would say is this. Sometimes surprise holidays can backfire on you because your wife might hate it. My sister was once taken to Las Vegas and hated it because it's noisy and brash and all that kind of stuff. So I would actually come clean about it and let your wife choose where you go on holiday.
OK. How about this one from George? Who will be employed in August, Corbyn or Redknapp?
Corbyn or Redknapp? Well, Redknapp should be employed in August because wherever he goes, he'll do a good job, and that club needs pulling back together again. Corbyn, according to all the experts, can't survive. He's apparently going to get trounced in the forthcoming election on June the 8th. I would assume then after that, Labour Party will rebuild itself and hope that they can, put something into place for the next 5 years.
One from Johnny says, have you ever done a radio show with even mild bladderation influence?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yes, of course we have.
You're happy to admit to that? What do you mean we? We haven't. I haven't.
Oh, yeah, I have to admit to it.
Right. There is audio evidence, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has happened. You get situations working abroad where you might be working very late at night, seriously, and then the next morning have to come on very early. And the night before you've been involved, you might have been a late football match celebrating late. I remember after England played Germany in Munich, Alvin Martin and I sat there celebrating until 6 in the morning, and I was unaware that I was going to be called back onto the radio at 7:30. So, yes. I was, and I had to do an hour in the studio upstairs in the hotel.
How did that go?
It was very hard.
Yeah.
You had to concentrate on it quite intensely. But that's the nature of radio on Talk Sport. We're not quite as formal as organisations like the BBC, so we try to sort of be of the people.
Michael says this, Dear Porky, is it possible to love two women at the same time, or is this simply lust?
No, I think it probably is. I mean, most people have difficulty concentrating on loving one woman at a time, I suppose, in the sense that that might lead to families and and relationships and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can't see any reason why you couldn't be in love with more than one woman at the same time. But when you are, you have to eventually get a sense of priority as to which one of the ladies in question you love most.
Anthony says, what's the best way to remove beer and food stains from a cheap cotton shirt?
Wash it, I suppose. I mean, everything that you spill on yourself in a restaurant or a bar or something like that can usually be removed by washing. And if not, throw the shirt out.
Throw the shirt away, OK. Here's one from Simon. He says, there are apparently 20-stone wild boar rampaging around the New Forest.
Yes.
Would it be a good idea to try spear hunting them?
No, because they're very vicious, actually. They move very fast, they're heavy, and they can gore you with their horns.
Yes.
What I would advise is don't go anywhere near packs of wild boar in the New Forest. Go somewhere else.
OK. Hey, Porky, says Mark, this is the final one. Do you think the British public have had enough of politicians, politics and elections for 1 year?
Well, there have been an awful lot of it, haven't there? We had the referendum, we got the May elections, May the 4th, and we got the general election, June the 8th. I think we're all a bit sort of election weary, but it's a process that has to be gone through a democratic society, so I'm afraid you just got to stick with it.
Yeah, you can't have too many elections, in my view. Well, that was Ask Porky.
Yes.
Rabbit, 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 rabbit. You got a beautiful chin. You got beautiful skin. You got a beautiful face. You got taste. You got beautiful eyes. You got beautiful thighs. You got a lot without a doubt. But I'm thinking about blowing you out. 'Cause you won't stop talking. Why don't you give it a rest? You got more rabbit than Sainsbury's.
I'm surprised it's taken
enough of this, haven't we?
I'm surprised it's taken them this long to play this.
Exactly.
To be honest.
Rabbit. Yeah.
Robert says, Harvey is the name of the rabbit James Stewart, the wealthy drunk, keeps visualising in the movie.
Is that
the
right?
Wealthy drunk.
The wealthy
there
drunk.
You go.
Yeah, there
Could
you
be
go.
you, couldn't it?
Wealthy drunks, eh? Now, listen, things are changing at schools. You've got two young boys at schools.
I certainly have.
But you better beware because the role reversal is taking place in schools all over the country.
What sort of role reversal?
Well, in our day, when I was there, the only thing I wanted to do when I got to 16 was sort of womanize and start drinking. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought you'd have already started with about 10, hadn't you?
No, it was about 14 actually, but nevertheless, it grew.
Yeah. How's that going?
Well, yeah, it's going okay. The one thing I didn't do, of course, was take up smoking at that age, which I presume you did.
No, I started smoking probably about 16.
Well, there you go. You're still at school, right?
Yeah.
Now then, well, the problem is that school children
You're
now...
telling me you didn't smoke when you were a teenager?
Never had a cigarette.
I don't believe you.
I never had a cigarette till I was 25 or 26. Yeah, seriously.
Really?
Never.
Well, if you'd managed to get that far,
Yeah.
why'd you bother starting then?
Well, because I worked with a guy in Birmingham when we were in the Redditch office together,
Oh, yeah.
and he used to don't use that word.
Don't say it.
He used to smoke 80 cigarettes a day.
Right.
He always had 3 packets of cigarettes on his desk or 2 packets in his car.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's just an inveterate smoker.
Yeah.
And actually, when we were going out drinking all the time, and in those days you could drink in pubs and outside pubs and anywhere.
And you smoke anywhere you like.
Smoke anywhere.
Yeah.
He just
Just chain smoke.
He just chain smoked, and in the end, he said, "Go on, try one if you like." And I got so fed up and talking to him about haze of smoke, you know. Eventually, I did, and then I got he smoked Benson Hedges, but for some unknown reason, somebody introduced me to Consulate.
You always liked menthol cigarettes.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years, I smoked them.
Newports used to smoke in America.
Newport, that's right. Yeah, I did in America. Yeah, but anyway, the point is, what's happening is that youngsters now.
Got a quick one to read you here. Harvey has nothing to do with the Harvey Wallbanger Porky, says Robert.
He does.
He says calls you an oaf as well.
Oh yeah, well I'm not having that. So what's happening is that bad behaviour amongst children, pupils, is going down massively. I.e., children don't smoke, they don't drink, they're all teetotalers.
Well, it's good that they don't smoke. Isn't
A lot of them are vegetarians. But what's happening is that the role reversal is taking place because stressed out teachers are now turning to drink and prescription drugs to get through a working day in school because they find it so stressful.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Teachers
at that.
turning to drink and drugs to cope with the pressures of their jobs, says new research. Drinking, smoking and drug taking, drug taking in particular, are at record lows among teenagers, but appear to be on the rise among their teachers.
Really?
More than a fifth of teachers said they are increasingly being driven to alcohol by the stress of their work, according to a survey of 5,000 teachers by the union NASUWT.
Well, you see, they would say that, wouldn't they? But I could say there is some truth to it, because certainly a lot of the teachers around now are very young.
Yeah.
So they're in their sort of mid-20s when they start, perhaps, or maybe even early 20s.
Yes.
And it is a tough job. I mean, as much as I make fun of teachers, it's not something I would want to do.
No, it's not something I'd want to do.
And there's an awful lot of strain and stress around it, and there's an awful lot of, nastiness around it as well, as you're teaching older kids.
That's right.
I mean, I have seen in the past teachers from, the locale, shall we say.
Yes.
And quite often they live away from the area because they don't want to run into their pupils when they go out.
I see.
So, like, they wouldn't want to, for example, if they worked in somewhere like Hastings, they don't want to live there because they get spotted.
Yeah.
And I remember once actually seeing one of the young guys that was teaching at the local primary school. And it was a Friday sort of early evening.
Right.
And he was with a bunch of other lads.
Yeah.
And they were in the supermarket buying about as much beer as you've ever seen in your life.
I see.
Filling up a huge trolley and sort of larking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hang on a second, you're a teacher down the road.
What are you
shouldn't be
doing
that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's entitled to do it.
Yeah, but it's not a good example to his pupils.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of kids from the school in the supermarket.
That's right.
And you're kind of going, really?
Yeah, good. Anyway, it says 1 in 8 had undergone counselling, 1 in 14 have used or increased their reliance on prescription drugs, and more than 1 in 10 their reliance on antidepressants. Now, look, if I had children at school and I thought the teachers are turning up for work bladderated from the night before, or even, maybe a breakfast...
Under the influence of something.
Yeah, a breakfast sherry or something like that, I'd start getting very concerned, It says here, one teacher told the survey, I often think about self-harming or crashing the car so I don't have to go to work. I mean, that's a terribly bad position to be in, isn't it? We've got to get to grips with this, you know what I mean?
But I think a lot of the whole business of whether people take various things or, the culture of the generations is different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, like the culture of, as you say, the current crop of teenagers is all about things which are also possibly dangerous and, they're on social media, they've got phones, they're taking pictures and sending them to each other and doing all that stuff. Yeah. And they may not be smoking and drinking, but they're still getting up to no good.
Yeah, it says
one way or another.
It's clear that far too many teachers in the job, it is taking an unacceptable toll on their health and well-being. It's affecting all aspects of their personal and professional lives. Now, it gets on to the point you just mentioned. If the majority of teachers are unable to relax away from work and feel constantly worn down and worried about work issues, their mental and physical health is inevitably going to suffer and they will not be able to give their best to the children at school. When I went up to the King's School recently, as you know I did, because I put out some pictures of the
Well, I saw one picture of you standing outside.
Yes,
I didn't see any pictures of you inside at all.
Oh, it was inside, but, I didn't want to sort of start taking pictures.
Were you embarrassed to take pictures on the inside?
No, but, I was in the corridors of great academic learning. I didn't think it was proper to sort of whip out a phone camera and start taking pictures. But the point of my story is...
Didn't they only sort of butter you up because they want your money?
Well, no, that's unfair. I may make a donation, but, that's a little bit unfair.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to say to you is that I was talking to the guy who's the alumni, the alumni guy, a very nice chap called Ant, I think I've told you about. And he said, some of your teachers are still active within the school.
Uh-huh.
I said, they can't be. I said, I was here 35 years ago,
right.
And he said, no. He said, do you remember Reg Reed? No, Reg Reed was great.
Right.
He was the maths teacher.
Was he?
Yeah.
Well, he must have been young if he was teaching you.
Well, let me tell you a story. He was a maths teacher. He was the only southerner in the whole of the school. His name was Reg Reed. They talk like that,
Right.
and I come from
Well, he
London.
sounded very well educated.
Well, he was a southern boy who got
he was a Cockney?
He was a Cockney, all right, yeah. And he got a degree at Liverpool University in maths, and then decided to stay in the area and ended up at the King's School Chester, right? But not only did he spend the whole of his life teaching at the King's School Chester, what age do teachers retire? About 65?
Well, I would think. Some of them in the old days used to retire quite early because, like all public sector workers a long time
pensions,
ago, they got pretty good pensions early on.
Yes, that's right.
But certainly they shouldn't be working much beyond 65.
Well, say 60 then. So that would have been, I don't know when that would have been. But the point I'm making is, did you realise when you were sort of about 14 or 15 that your maths teacher used to wear a black cloak in our school.
Yeah, ours did as well.
And walked around with, files under his arms, was probably only 10 years older than me. I didn't realise that. I always thought the teachers would be about 20 years older.
Well, I mean, we had some young teachers, but we always kind of knew when they were younger, because we thought if they were younger, we could get away with more.
Yes, that's
so
right.
We used to give them a harder time.
But I didn't realise Reg was still in his 20s when he was teaching me. And the reason why I say he's still around is that though he's retired a long time ago, he's still a very active member of school associations, and as an ambassador for the school.
Right.
So that, when parents are coming in to, look at the thing and all that, Reg can show them around and tell them, the history of the school and all that kind of stuff.
It's a bit like the way football clubs use their older
legendary
players.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it's a good thing, yeah.
Are you not surprised they haven't asked you to fulfil some kind of role?
Well,
like
they have
that?
now. I'm going back in the autumn to address the boys on...
We haven't finished this conversation, actually, because you mentioned this the other day.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you further about the content of your lecture.
Yes.
What's it going to be about?
Well, I haven't decided yet, but I'll tell you what.
Would you like some help with that?
No, they've got a theatre there now. We used to have what's called an assembly
Why
hall.
don't we do a Two Mike show?
Well, we could. They've got a theatre big enough. This is the point.
Considering that you've done your... you've given them a free DVD.
Yes, 2.
You've given them 2?
Yeah.
All right.
Last year's and this year's.
Well, that's a couple of quid you owe me then, isn't it?
no.
I've told you this before. You'll just go handing them out.
Well,
I own half of them,
Don't worry. I've reimbursed the
I'm not
fund.
worried. Yeah, all right,
fund.
good.
Yeah.
But the point is, right, that once they see the foul mouthery that goes on in that,
well, I am
they're not
worried
going
about
They're
that.
not going to want you back.
Yeah, probably not. No.
Some of the names that you call me on that are appalling.
Yeah, but the foul mouthery is very much you in the early parts of the most recent DVD.
Some of it is.
Which has appalled quite a lot of people.
But
your language is disgraceful.
I don't think that they're going to be too keen on getting you into the place.
They've put it in the library, right?
Right.
They put the most recent DVD in the library in a prime position. Now, they have young ladies now at the school, the King's School Chester. They didn't in my day, but they do now.
Young ladies.
So young lady takes that out and sticks it into a machine and says, let's have a look at this. He's a former pupil,
Yeah.
They're going to make...
I don't think they're going to be doing that.
They're going to think that, I didn't really learn a lot of English, did I? Apart from Anglo-Saxon versions of it.
Well, first of all, I can't imagine anyone who's at the school as a student would have any interest at all to anything that some old git like you's been up to.
Of course they would.
What
do you mean?
What do you mean? Because, you look at the state of you. I mean, they're not going to go,
no.
oh, look, we've just discovered that, Ronan Keating went to this school. Let's see what he's doing now.
No, what the teachers say now is they say if you apply yourself to your job, you can end up like Mike Parry. Yeah. And then they've got the DVD to prove
there's some
it.
kind of warning.
No. How dare you?
How about this from Stephen? He says, can you say hello to Stephen in Belfast? I've asked so many times without getting a reply on the radio.
Okay.
Can you say hello to him?
Steve in Belfast, hello.
Einstein, go.
I remember this song, Einstein a Go-Go.
I don't know. Who's that?
I don't know. It's one of those bands from the sort of late 70s, mid-80s, something like that.
Okay.
Here's one from Todd, who says, I've given Porky some stick over the past, but fair play, he hasn't blocked me yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't block people unless they use foul language, which I don't like, and I don't think it should ever be used in... in social media exchanges, and therefore I sometimes find people's, even if they're trying to be sort of funny, but it's badly versed, I just can't have the risk of getting into communication with them. I'm sorry, but that's just it.
Nick says this, be grateful Porky hasn't turned up at the Emirates wearing your shirt before taking a charity penalty. We've been in decline ever since. Is he talking about the charity penalty you took at Old Trafford?
It must be, yeah.
Have they been in decline ever since you took that penalty?
Who?
Manchester United.
No, that was...
Sure?
Oh, crikey, yeah, that was... I mean, blimey, that was so long ago. That was 2003, I think.
Well, that's what he's saying. I mean, is it since 2003 Man United haven't won very much? That wouldn't be right, would it?
No, they've won everything.
They've won everything.
They won titles and all sorts of things.
Okay.
So,
maybe he's got the dates wrong. Brandon says,
yeah.
I'm just wondering what defensive tactics Mr. Porky would take to not be removed off a United Airlines flight. Obviously, everybody knows that story now, but when we talk to our expert in a little while, we'll ask him what the latest is with United. But,
sure.
I mean, I can't imagine they're ever going to try that again.
I was once asked to leave a plane for some reason. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was, I think they were downgrading me or something. You know what I mean?
You?
Yeah, what happened? You know, in America you can buy these coupons that get you upgraded.
No.
Yes, you can.
I never bought them.
I used to get a book of coupons. You get them at any airport, yeah, and I think it was like $40 a coupon or something like that. And if there's a spare seat on the plane, you got upgraded. And
and you just gave them one of these coupons?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you could ask, is there any facility for an upgrade? And they'd say, and they'd look at it and say, there's a couple of spare seats in business.
Wasn't that more to do with your frequent flyer miles? And all
no, you didn't use frequent flyer miles. They were upgrade tickets. Phil Finn put me onto it. I don't know how widely known it was. Yeah,
I don't know about it.
Yeah, but Phil said, get one of these, so he did. But anyway, what happened on one occasion was I got an upgrade from somewhere, back to New York, Fort Worth, Dallas or somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Dallas, Fort Worth, indeed. And then just as I sat into my seat, the guy came and I said, I'm awfully sorry, the plane's more full than we thought it was.
Yeah.
You've got to go back in. I said, to get me out of this seat, you're going to have to use physical force. I'm not moving. Full stop.
Well, it's lucky you went United flight.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Or else I'd have been, set upon by a group of people.
So how did it end then?
It ended with me staying where I was, and they got some other mug to get up and walk down into, big
rude
class.
of you, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. I said no. I said I've had a very long job here. I've been here for 3 days, got a long flight home. I'm not moving, know. And I made my position absolutely clear, and they could say I was a man of authority, so they didn't mess with me.
Right.
Listen, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, go on.
Do you know where the point in history where men and women became physically distinguishable from each other has now been discovered.
Has it?
And it was the moment...
Are you saying that there wasn't always a time when that was true?
No, there wasn't. I mean, if you look at horses, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Horses, male horses and female horses, can race against each other in the same race.
Yes.
You can have mares in the same race as stallions and all that kind of stuff,
geldings
right?
as well,
And geldings and all that kind of stuff, yeah? Well, the human race used to be like that, and what changed it was the invention...
Yeah.
of the bow and arrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I was watching Apocalypse Now last night, which was on one of the TVs. You know that scene where they get up very close to where Colonel Kurtz is?
Yes.
And the natives start firing bows and arrows.
That's right.
Or start firing arrows.
Yes.
And they all think it's a bit daft and silly. And then suddenly the guy on the captain of the boat gets one straight through his chest.
That's right, yeah.
And he's dead.
He's dead, yeah.
And they realise it's actually quite serious.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
So this was the moment that the gender gap started, okay?
Right.
Because up until then, the way that people went hunting for food was with spears.
Uh-huh.
Now, a man and a woman can basically propel a spear around about the same distance with the same force.
But would there not have also been, even in those days, certain physiological differences which made men technically stronger than women?
Well, yes, but remember the hunter-gatherer thing? You went out and you tried to capture animals, like, say, a big pig. What's it called?
A jaguar.
No, a hog.
A boar.
A boar.
A wild boar.
A wild boar, that's right, a wild boar.
Yeah.
And what you did is you sat in a tree and then you jumped on the wild boar with your spear and bang, you did. And,
well, there are lots of ways of catching a wild boar.
No, that's the best way of capturing a wild boar. So
jump on it from a tree?
Yes, you sit...
What, just downward
and
stab
right.
it with a spear?
Yes, that's right, absolutely.
Yeah.
You
they
sit
run
in a
quite
tree.
fast, wild boars,
Yeah, well, that's why you don't run after them. You sit in a tree, right?
What if you miss it?
Well, you won't, will you? Because you
might.
No, you're not, because you're skilled at doing it. A hunter-gatherer is quite a skillful person. So the hunter-gatherer sits in his tree, and then the boar comes along below.
Is there an ideal height from the tree?
Yeah, about 6 feet is about right, because that can break the boar's back as well.
Well, doesn't he see you, though?
No. They don't look up wild boar. No, they look down.
Just look down.
Yeah, because they're snuffling around for fungus and stuff.
Truffles.
Truffles, that's right. Yeah, they are. Yeah, seriously.
Right, okay.
So you leap out of the tree with your spear, woof, and you get him first time. Then exactly where the heart is in a wild boar, and they stick the spear
same
in.
place it is in everybody else, presumably.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So men and women didn't have to be physiologically different to catch a wild boar. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
However,
I don't know if any of this is in any way true.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely true.
Really?
I found it in my historical journals.
Of course.
So when the bow and arrow came along...
Boar Weekly.
Sorry?
Boar Weekly.
Honestly, you're a complete idiot sometimes,
Sorry, do carry on.
You can't take this seriously. I'm trying to tell you about the evolution of man.
Well, you're talking about jumping out of a tree on top of a boar.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
Sounds very dangerous.
No, it's what they used to do. Now then, when the bow and arrow came along, a man suddenly had the physiological strength to hold a bigger bow and to pull the string back further because of the strength of his arm, and therefore propel the arrow a greater distance with greater force into the chest of an oncoming animal.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
To kill it, and
so the physical nature of men was then that made that stronger. But that's what I thought a spear would have made it stronger.
No, because the spear, the downward force of the spear could be transmitted through a man or woman's body. So it says here the transition from hunting with atlatls.
What?
Atlatls.
What's that?
An atlatl is a weighted stick which used to throw light spears or darts much further than by hand alone.
Oh, right.
It's like a sling type operation.
What? So I can't imagine what that looks like.
Well, you put the end of the spear into like a sling and then whoosh, you woof it off.
That'd be quite hard to do, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, they got quite skilled at it. But a man and a woman could propel it the same distance.
Right.
So this all changed about 10,000 years ago. That's a long time ago, that.
That is a long time ago.
Because
some Christians think the Earth was formed, isn't it?
It could be, because, I mean, modern civilization's about 2,000 years, so they're 8,000 years before that, OK?
Yeah.
So this changed about 10,000 years ago in Europe and at different times elsewhere. It's normally ascribed to the bow's greater accuracy and faster reload rate, OK? Because when you were reloading your atlatl, it took quite a long time. If a wild boar was rushing at you, you didn't get a second shot, you know what I mean?
Well, why don't you put somebody up in a tree?
Well, that's what you did normally. So... this would have allowed
Where do we go with this,
for a broader diet, and it freed people from having to hunt together for safety in numbers when taking on, big animals, like, for instance, the mighty mammoth.
The mammoth?
If you've got a mammoth bearing down on
Woolly mammoth, yeah.
You were brown bread.
You couldn't jump on top of one of them and get it down,
couldn't.
Could you?
Well, it wouldn't make any point in jumping on top of them. They'd think you were a flea on their back.
I presume what they had to do with those was to try and trip them up and get them down on the ground.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. Or build a big pit for them to fall into.
Like the way they got those walkers, the Imperial walkers in Star Wars, when they used to fly around and...
yes.
And you've never seen Star Wars,
No.
Have you never seen any Star Wars film?
No, I haven't.
How can you not have seen a Star Wars film?
I don't know. I don't have children, do I? So I don't suppose you went to see them.
It's not a kids' movie.
Isn't it? Okay.
Not really, no.
Anyway, now this has all come from the journal I read, American Anthropologist, okay? Sorry, what's wrong? American Anthropologist.
No, it must be riveting. Riveting read that.
I don't know why you find such amusement in scientific documents,
what else is in this month's American Anthropologist?
Well, it doesn't matter, because this is the most important
do they have a crossword?
Feature that they've done. No, they don't have a crossword, you idiot. So what happened was...
Yeah.
Prehistorically,
yes.
The function of man and woman was equal. The throwing device has
I thought you said this was when it became unequal.
Yes, it became unequal when the bow and arrow came. But we know that women were also hunter gatherers as well as men, because when we found some of these ancient graves.
Oh yeah.
Alongside the woman has been the spear.
Oh yeah,
and the
what do you call that thing? Lateral something or other.
The lateral.
The
lateral, which launched the spear. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's incredibly interesting. That
really,
man and woman were separated in their
Can't say I agree with you.
In the expectancy of what they could achieve in life by the bow and arrow. Okay. No, it's true.
There's a great question here from Ian.
Yes.
He says, if wild boars don't look up, how do they know when it's raining?
Well, because they feel it on their snout.
You think?
Yes, absolutely.
How do they know that's not just coming from somewhere else, though?
And it's a silly question anyway, because, I'm trying to tell you something which is of great scientific interest, and all you want to do is start talking rubbish.
There's another one here from Roger who says, has Porky been watching Rambo?
Well, honestly,
when he stabs the
actually he does.
Spears the,
he would have got that from the manual of hunter gatherer,
American Anthropologist, maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, those. I mean, he was supposed to be an elite jungle warfare specialist, and they would have been taught that as a very basic. Very, very basic resource and action on how to not starve to death in the middle of a jungle.
Here's one from Dickie. He says, does Porky realise you're not in a break anymore and we can all actually hear this nonsense?
Well, honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I do all this research to spread this knowledge amongst others, and
don't worry. Coming up next, we're going to spread some more knowledge. Vinay Bhaskara is going to be here, senior business analyst with Airways Magazine. We're going to talk about what you have to do if they try and kick you off a plane.
All my bags are packed, ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye, but the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. The taxi's waiting, he's blown his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could die. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back.
Alternatively, I'm leaving off a jet plane. I'm not actually going on one.
Yeah, whose version is that? Is that...
It's John Denver. I thought it was Don McLean. It sounded like Don McLean, but it's John Denver, apparently.
It is John Denver, but that was originally done by Peter, Paul and Mary.
I suspect John Denver wrote it. I think he did.
Yeah, I think he probably did. You're right, yeah. He died, didn't he, when his plane crashed in the Rockies or something?
Yes, he did, yeah. It was a one-man plane. But anyway, let's talk to Vinay Bhaskara. He's a senior business analyst with Airways magazine.
Indeed.
He's going to tell us what the latest is with United. But also, there's a recent story in this part of the world as well, where a couple was thrown off an EasyJet flight before it went to Sicily, and they were not told that they had compensation coming. Vinay, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Well, it's evening where I'm at, but good morning to both you guys.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, you'll be very familiar with the moving of the time zones, I dare say. First of all, let's kick off with United Airlines. I mean, it was all over the news, really, for the last 2 weeks. What's actually happening with United at the moment? Are they going to survive this?
Well, I mean, I think that the notion that United was ever going to be in any real trouble from a financial perspective was probably a bit overblown. United is a multi-billion-dollar carrier, and if you look at their stock, it suffered a couple $100 million of a hit, which makes for great headlines. But when your company's worth $20-30 billion, isn't really going to move the needle.
That depends, I suppose. If people decide they don't want to travel on the plane because of what they've done and because of the viral video that's been seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world, I mean, stranger things have happened, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Stranger things have happened. I think for the moment, United has not seen any decline in passengers booking, but those were incredibly powerful images. And for people in my generation, I guess the millennial generation, those kinds of images can have a real impact. So you're right. I think it'll take us some time to see what the real impact is because, most people that were going to fly United this week or next week have already booked their tickets. Mm-hmm. But where you'd see the impact is 3 or 4 months down the line. So you're right that we don't know. But I do think that, I would say two things. So first, I think it's overblown, right? It's not going to kill United Airlines, but it will, tangibly, I think, impact their earnings. But I think the second point is that it's once again kicked off and highlighted the fact that the public in the United States in particular, but I think around the world to an extent, really hates airlines with a burning passion. And that's something that you see come up every time you have one of these incidents.
Absolutely right. And I mean, when you say this happens a lot, doesn't it? I mean, because people are constantly getting bumped off flights, but obviously from the airline's point of view, it's never quite as dramatic as this. I mean, do we know, for example, that whether they're up until this moment when Dr. Dow was so sort of publicly humiliated on international sort of social media, that this kind of thing was going on? I mean, were people boarding planes and forcibly removing passengers?
Yeah, so if you look at the stats, about 50,000 passengers had this happen to them last year. Mm-hmm. So, the number of people that get pulled off the plane against their will is pretty low, right? About 550,000 or so passengers were bumped, but those passengers were people, the majority of those were people that volunteered to get off the plane. Right. But yeah, last year you did see about 50,000 passengers have the same experience as Dr. Dow, though obviously they weren't dragged off and beaten to a pulp, basically.
That's a lot, though, isn't it?
Police officers.
It is. I mean, do we accept that when we buy an airline ticket, the small print on the back of the ticket says we are under no obligation to give you a seat on this plane? It just happens if there is one there, we'll give it to you. I mean, is that the position, Vinay, or am I just imagining that?
So overbooking and those kinds of situations where passengers get kicked off the plane, that's something that, sort of belies common sense. So, I have a mentor who says, who has a statement that I'm pretty fond of, which is that, life is a series of trade-offs, right? And the trade-off for this potentially happening, 1 out of every 5,000 times, right? So keep in mind that, that 50,000 number is on 800 million passengers a year. So it's a very tiny percentage of people that are getting kicked off. And the trade-off is that for the vast majority of flights, some people that have booked a ticket aren't going to show up. And so some other passengers are able to get onto that flight as a result of overbooking. Now, the other thing I would say here is that this wasn't really a case of overbooking. And that is something that I think United got wrong here, is that United didn't kick Dr. Dow off the flight because it sold too many tickets to passengers, right? United kicked Dr. Dow off the flight because it had to fly its own employees to Louisville. And that's a virtue of how the airline contracts are written, right? They can't just, I've seen people say that they should have just put those employees into an Uber, and that would be great if in theory United could have done that. But the way that the contracts are written with the employee unions, they had to fly those employees to Louisville, and that was the real challenge.
But that's their problem, isn't it, in the end? I mean, in a way, the passengers who have paid the money should be getting priority, and there certainly used to be a rule in this part of the world that you cocould not chuck somebody off a plane
for a member of your own staff.
And that may have changed in recent times. But I don't know whether you've seen, there's a story here as well, Vinay, about EasyJet, which is obviously a low-budget airline here in the UK, flying to Sicily. This couple were told that once they were on the plane that they had to get off. They were also not told by the EasyJet people on the ground that they were due some compensation. So if it's possible for you to tell us, if there is a single rule, depending on which part of the country or the world that you are in, and what are your rights as a passenger when you get bumped?
So in the European Union, absolutely, you are entitled to compensation, and you are entitled to a flight, not just on that airline that bumped you off, but on any competing airline. You're entitled to the next available flight where there are seats available, right? So let's say...
Sorry, let me just interrupt. Is there a limit to the compensation, or is there an amount that they proffer to you, or how does that work?
Yeah, the amount of compensation is typically capped based on the price of the ticket. Right. So you're not going to get $50,000 from a $50 one way or a £50 one way ticket. You're not going to get £50,000. But it is some multiple of the ticket price, and it depends on the country that you're traveling from and whether you're traveling sort of within the EU or to a third party country. Right. But you are entitled to compensation, and EasyJet absolutely should have informed this couple that they had the right to compensation, and more importantly that they had the ability to get rebooked onto another flight, so they didn't have to miss their vacation. I think that's the real harm here is not just that they didn't get compensation. And I think even if you talk to them, maybe they feel worse about not being able to go on vacation. And that's, I think, as much of a cost as not getting, compensation.
Yeah, I mean, thing is, Vinny, do we have to accept that part of the reason why flying is relatively cheap these days compared to, say, 30 or 40 years ago before we had budget airlines is because the airlines employ these sort of tactics to maximise the loads on their flights?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think life is a series of trade-offs, right? The trade-off for having lower-priced air travel is that you're going to compromise. You're going to have, planes that are more crowded. You're going to have less leg room. You're going to have more annoying rules to deal with. You're going to have to pay a fee for your checked baggage. But the flip side of that is you have the ability to travel from, I think I've seen this fare before, from London to, Corfu or to Athens for £39.
Yes, or whatever,
you couldn't have done that 30 years ago when the pound was, I think, half of what it was currently.
Sure.
Well, I mean, Michael O'Leary from Ryanair has actually suggested the idea of free flights for people that he would only charge for luggage because he thinks he could still make enough money that way, which is an extraordinary situation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it speaks to the power of the a la carte business model, right? So the business model where, you have a small price for the seat itself and then you charge for everything around it.
Exactly.
I think the trade-off, though, and Ryanair ran into this, is that, that's not something that passengers really like, right? And, you can kind of push passengers for a little bit and they'll put up with some pain for a lower fare. But there's a breaking point, and Ryanair has crossed it, and sometimes carriers like United with this sort of situation in terms of involuntary denied boarding may have crossed the line as well. That I think.
Yes. I mean, the business model has changed so much over the years. I mean, Mike and I used to work in New York back in the 80s. Transatlantic travel was incredibly sort of busy. There was about 10 flights a day from each airline that ran between New York City and London, and that doesn't really happen so much anymore. Which way is the business going? Is it going the way of what I think it is, which is sort of 4 or 5 just massive big airline corporations that fly everywhere in the world, and then a few small budget ones that kind of go on short hops?
Yeah, well, so given that I'm an American, I don't usually get to talk about soccer or football, as you call it. I think the great analogy is European football, right? Yeah. In each league, whether it's Spain or the United Kingdom or Serie A, you have 2 or 3 dominant teams that are financially powerful, that control and win the vast majority of titles and cups and Champions League spots. And then you have the rest of the teams duking it out for 6th place or 7th place in the Premier League table. Yeah. I think you have the same situation around the world. Airlines are consolidating, and you're going to have sort of the wealthy, powerful airlines like British Airways and the parent International Airlines Group, and then you're going to have the plucky upstarts, the Ryanair or the Leicester City in this analogy of the world.
Sure. And at the end of the day, we all benefit because a more efficient airline industry makes it better for everybody to get from A to B, yeah? You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? There are places now you can fly to, which you couldn't fly to 30 years ago, because it wouldn't sustain an airport because there weren't enough budget flights around. So, in the end of the day, it's getting better all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly getting better. I think the cost of air travel is going down. It's helping shrink the world. It's making it easier for people to travel to countries and places that they never thought possible. But the trade-off is always that air travel is becoming more stressful.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think the airlines can do a better job of balancing those 2 priorities.
Yeah, no, I accept
United
that.
Did.
Sure. Good idea.
Vinay, thank you very much
The
indeed.
answer, of course, is always travel business class.
Well, that's what you would say. If you could afford to do that, that's very nice for you.
Yes,
but, I mean, with all of the trouble with security now and with all the trouble with... maybe the answer is just to fly in your own private plane, Porky. It's time you actually invested in one.
I think private plane travel is something to look for in the future, because if you get enough people on a private plane, you can probably make it work.
Yeah.
But we might be travelling on a private plane soon.
You never know. You never know. Unfortunately, Bantam Bouncer does not appreciate this kind of music. He says bagpipes are the worst sounding instrument ever.
Oh, they're
Sounds
great.
like you're squeezing a dead cat.
Have you never heard Mull of Kintyre?
Yeah, of course I have.
No, I'm talking about our correspondent there. What's his name again?
Bantam Bouncer.
OK, Bantam Bouncer. Have a quick listen to Paul McCartney's Mull of Kintyre, mate.
He's not the greatest aficionado of the pipes,
you will appreciate the beauty of the bagpipe.
How about this from Rodney?
Yeah.
It says, Porky must have had a Wetherspoon's pigeon's brain implanted, as that's the place he always returns to.
How funny is that?
That's very good. Paul says, how about the Black Dolphin in Russia? That's a perfect example of how to run a prison. You should check it out.
The Black Dolphin?
Yeah.
Is that like the Black Lubyanka?
I guess it must be somewhere
horrible.
horrible.
I suppose so,
I don't think you want to go to prison in Russia, would you?
No, of course you wouldn't.
And
There's a lot of places you wouldn't go to prison in, like Mexico and Costa Rica and places like that.
Yeah, Nick says this, utter drivel, Porky. HMP Preston couldn't fill the Millennium Stadium, but B-Wing could easily fill Goodison and its single cells.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that
don't know what he's
rubbish
alluding
is
to
about.
there.
No, neither do I.
Now, I've got a question for you.
Yes?
Are you a member of an organisation called something like the Landlords... Cooperative Board?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, well, you have to be. If you invest in property, then you have to, just like trade unions band together to protect themselves against evil employers, then people who invest in property do have associations where they get together because, you want to make sure the government don't see you as a cash cow and are constantly upping the taxes on property, which is what the current Tory government has been doing lately and which has upset me greatly and causing me deep distress and sleepless nights.
So are you saying that you belong to this kind of professional organisation which lobbies on your behalf and on behalf of other landlords to make sure that you don't actually have to pay your fair share of taxes?
No, I pay my fair share of taxes. I just don't want to pay an unfair share of taxes. It's a landlord's associate. You know, there's thousands of people who are members of it, and that's the reason.
Do you ever meet anybody from that organisation?
Well, you kind of correspond on email and all that kind of stuff, you know.
There's a bit of a scandal going on at the moment. I don't know if you've heard about this.
No, there's no scandal involved. These are good people who invest their money wisely.
No, there's a terrible scandal going on, which I've picked up on, which is going on in parts of the country, different parts of the country.
What's this to do with leaky roofs and all that kind of stuff?
No, you'll hear about it in a second. It's in places like Maidstone, in Rochester, in Kent, in Brighton, it's happening. And it's such a thing as sex for rent deals, which seem to be being offered by certain unscrupulous types, right? Landlords who have got properties to rent out. Yeah. And what they're doing is preying on, the pennilessness of some young people.
Right.
And basically saying to them, and advertising this, right, on things like Craigslist.
What?
Basically saying, you can come and live here for free, as long as you can be my girlfriend for a while, or my boyfriend for a while. And I'll just pop in from time to time.
That's like sex slavery.
And have a bit of horizontal refreshment.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And that's how you can pay the rent.
Well,
I mean, what sort of organisation is this?
Well, it's
a shocking situation.
Not one I want to be a member of, I'm telling you. That's disgraceful.
It's disgusting.
Preying young people like that who are broke and, say, oh, blimey, come on, rumpy-pumpy in exchange for a free
this one here,
accommodation. That's terrible.
This was posted in Maidstone in Kent, right? Yeah. Posted by a man who was a landlord seeking a woman who would move in and pretend to be his girlfriend.
Pretend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another was advertising a double room in Rochester, available in exchange for, open quote, services.
Really? Well, that's a disgrace. I mean, if I came across
surely there
anything
must be some kind of law against this.
Well, there should be a law against it, but I suppose that at the end of the day, you're saying, well, it's consensual, relationships between two adults. But I have to say, if I came across that and anything like that happened in any property I was associated with, I would clamp down on it very strongly.
A young woman who spoke to this organisation on condition of anonymity said that she felt under pressure to keep her landlord happy. They could just come over to you and say, I want sex now, and you don't have much of a choice because you know it's their home and you want to just keep that place.
Well, that's a disgrace.
That's awful.
They've got to clamp down on that. I'm not having that sort of thing.
Horrendous.
It's awful. Yeah.
So I think what they're going to try and do is clamp down on the advertising of it. But I mean, incredible that somebody would be so brazen as to offer that kind of, service.
Well, I do as well. I have to say I'm rather disappointed.
I mean, presumably when you vet your tenants, you use some kind of agency to do that, do you?
Well, they have to come with references, and you have to look out for things like county court judgments and that sort of thing.
What about like the Egyptian doctor? How do you check his references from Egypt?
Well, really, you do that through the medical authorities. For instance, he'd only moved to where he is because he was working in a local hospital. So you go to the hospital and you check that he is actually he is a paediatrician. They look after children.
Yes, they do.
That's right. Yeah, he's a paediatrician.
Either that or a podiatrist who looks after feet.
No. He's a paediatrician and a very qualified man. And a nice guy. Nice
but
job,
I mean, if he's only been living in this country for a short period of time.
No, I think he's been here a while.
Has he?
Been here for a while.
What would you do if he didn't have a long enough credit references or something?
Well, I wouldn't let him take the place in the first place.
So you wouldn't just try and go to Egypt and find out?
No, definitely not. Why? Because there's a queue of people who want to. There's a shortage of property in this country, and there are people who will always take up rental opportunities.
There's no shortage of property in this country at all. There's a shortage of affordable property in this country. It's something else.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
One landlord, right, told the people who were doing this investigation, he says, you can argue that high rent charged by landlord is taking advantage as well. There's no compulsion for anybody to do this. Everyone goes into it with their eyes open. He's basically saying that, if you rent a property from him and he says that, as part of the deal, you have to have some kind of, Rogerisation going on with it.
Yes.
You just have to expect it.
Well, that gives us all a bad name. I mean, I wouldn't dream of getting involved in a situation like that. I find that rather seedy and very, very unsavoury.
I think you might want to reconsider your membership of this organisation.
Well, I might have a look. I might go and talk to people. Yeah. I'm actually rather grateful for you bringing that to my attention.
Not at all.
Because that's not the sort of thing I would wish to be associated with under any circumstances.
There's an MP, actually, who's involved in it. For the MP for Hove. Who says there is an onus on the owners of these platforms to root this out and deal with this. And he's talking about places like Craigslist. They shouldn't allow these adverts to run.
There's an awful lot of rental property in Hove.
Is there?
Brighton, Hove. A tremendous amount of rental property down there.
Have you got any there that you rent out?
No, I haven't, but I've looked at stuff occasionally. It's a bit of a generalisation, but a lot of the property in Brighton certainly is old, and old property requires quite a lot of maintenance, so I've veered away from it.
Okay.
Yes.
I got this from Patrick. I'm surprised Porky isn't asking MG for more details on this landlord scam. Sounds right up his street.
Well, no, it's a disgrace. People who are renting property can often be quite vulnerable because you quite rightly say they are.
Well, they're often not particularly well endowed financially.
Well, they live week to week and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful how you sort of structure the finances for.
David
things
says,
like that.
Porky, do the Slum Landlords Association have a secret handshake?
I've no idea because A, there is no Slum Landlords Association, and B, I wouldn't get involved in any organisation like that. You know, and I'm getting rather, sick and tired and fed up of having my character impugned in this way on this show.
No, I'm just saying that some of your colleagues in this Landlords Association are rather sort of batting below the belt, as it were.
Yeah.
Which is not a very good thing for them to be doing.
Yeah, well, you could well be right.
And Bantam Bouncer says, why should prisoners get all the free training when law-abiding people can't get it without paying for it? It's a very good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you were the one that was saying that, people who go to prison should be somehow taught to do a job.
Well, I think they should. I believe in the old adage of don't give a man a fish, teach him how to fish, and then he can look after himself. If you send a bloke to jail and all you do is lock him up 23 hours a day, and all he does is spend his time spaced out on homemade hooch in the jail and
marijuana
and the zombie drug, which is now quite legal outside of jail.
Drug?
What's it called?
What's
Spice?
That? Spice?
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know about that.
It is, yeah. If
you're an expert in the zombie drug now.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
They're selling a lot of it down in Gosport, are they?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
In that funny pub across where you live from.
No, there's nothing funny about that at all.
Yeah, it looks a bit of a zombie sort of hangout.
No, it doesn't. How dare you be so personally
It's horrible
abusive.
down there.
It's not horrible down there.
It is horrible.
At all. It's not.
It's disgusting.
We've got one of the best women's darts teams in the country. What's your problem with that?
That's great. How about this from Andy?
Yeah.
He says, the SNP government has a track record in leading the way in building social housing in the UK.
Yeah.
The new London hub is to attract investment.
Really?
I mean, it's amazing what some people believe, isn't it?
I think the Scottish Government also leads the way in this country spending public money.
Yeah.
I mean, vast amounts of it, to build vast buildings, to house people who are politicians who don't really have a job.
Yeah.
They down due to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown thinking, well, the best way to stop Scottish independence is to give them sort of half a government in a huge
Which
building.
didn't work at all.
No.
Do you know what they
that
also
just wiped Labour out.
But do you know what they also did? In addition to building that Parliament building,
Holyrood,
which cost 400 million instead of 40, right?
That's right, yeah.
Just around the corner from where we had lunch down in Leith, there's another massive building, right, which houses all the civil servants who now have to work for the Scottish Parliament.
That's right.
Do you know how many of them there are?
No.
3,500.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
In a massive building.
Like an army of people, which cost another sort of probably, 200 million or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely right.
You're absolutely right.
But also the people in Scotland who vote for the SNP, who hate politicians, they say, have got so much faith in the SNP that they think everything they do is great.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't quite make those things add up.
And that Holyrood, you're right, I think it's the most over-budgeted building in the world. It did
10
go
times over budget.
It went from 38 million, which is the original planning cost, to nearly 400.
That's
You're
right.
absolutely right.
410.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.